So our goal for today is to add shelve into the code that we've been writing. So in the last video, we looked at the documentation for shelve, which is available at this link, and we started to read the code snippet at the bottom of the page. And what you might have observed is that some of these variable names make sense, such as this variable name data, and others might make less sense to you if you've seen them less. So how come this one's just called letter D? Perhaps that could be more descriptive. It turns out that documentation is not always friendly to beginners. So just go ahead and look past that, and maybe in your notes, make a note yourself of what that variable stands for. So what we're going to do by looking at this code sample and kind of using that technique of trying to look inside the documentation and find just the information we're really interested in, I'm going to highlight this top line. So we see that we're going to have to open this. We're going to have to import this module, and then we're going to have to open a shelve. So these two things are very important. And then if we cut to the chase, cut to the very end, we're going to see that we have to also close it. So all these other things in the middle, these have to do with the typical database operations: create, read, update, and delete. And these are a bunch of examples that we can understand when we need to. But for now, we're going to focus on we're going to take these top two lines. I'm actually just going to copy them out. And I'm going to go back into our program. I'm actually just going to paste them in. Let's paste them in. And then I'm just going to start working with them piece by piece. So I would encourage you to do this same thing. Go ahead and take just what we need. And first of all, let's rename this. Let's name this shelve to be something that makes a little more sense to us in our context of our app. I'm going to call it math data or math shelve. Let's call it math shelve. Shelve.open. And in here we get to pick a name for it. I'm going to call it math data. I believe that shelve is going to append the file extension .db. So I think shelve will create mathdata.db. Sorry, let's make these colors a little more visible. Okay, so far, I just took these two lines basically directly from the docs, and I started changing them according to what I know I want to do. If it's clearer for this example, we can make this variable name be the exact same thing as the file name that shelve creates. That's up to you. In this example, I'm gonna call this math shelve because this is the variable that accesses the shelve we've just created. Now, before I forget, I'm gonna make sure that I get this exact line, which has to do with closing the shelve. And if this is something you've already covered, don't worry. This experience of seeing it a few times in a row will be good practice for you to understand exactly how it works. This is analogous to closing the database connection. So this line down here is important to us because when we're working with production databases on real cloud hosted software, it's important to always be aware of which connections we have open, and so that we can manage what's happening at different times. I see that I have some extra pseudocode still left over down here. I'll make sure we clean that up during this if not this video, the next one. So far, we've created a shelve. I'll go ahead and put a comment there. Create a shelve, and that has this name. And now, each time somebody types something in, which as of right now, they're just typing in guess, we're going to need to put it in. So we talked about using a label, just using the variable n as our label, which we chose to do explicitly here instead of using the loop variable I. We've chosen to make n be the label and make it very explicit. So I'm actually going to go ahead in here and I'm going to say, let's say, I want to make a dictionary that contains the data that we're recording about them. So I'll say this problem. I'm going to go ahead and make a dictionary here. So the problem it's going to contain 4 pieces of information. What problem? So actually, let's call this problem data. So it's going to contain what problem they were working on, and then all 3 of these additional pieces of information. So if you want to challenge yourself, I'll stop the video here, and you can try to figure out how can you wrap this information into a dictionary, and then how can you place it into the shelf. So here we'll say, store the info into the shelf. Actually, I'll make this font bigger. So let's say, put the data into a single item, that is into a Python dictionary. So that's what you're going to try to do here. And then we want to save that information into the shelf or store it into the shelf. And if you need hints, a good place to go to get hints is to refer back to these docs. So I will leave this here. Again, our goal was we're getting into some syntax in this video, but I'll explain all of it in the next video.